Unfortunately, this is not a pleasant meeting item, and it has a lot to do with what has not happened in the past and what has to happen in the future. The memo that is in your packet talks about the wastewater treatment plant and the sewer enterprise fund. And as you know from your audit report that we received earlier this year, your sewer enterprise fund is running in the black, in the red, excuse me. And to the tune of, in real dollars, about $4,000 a year. And part of the reason for that goes back to 2006, where we had recommended to the council that you establish annual upgrade of the rates just to keep pace with inflation. We talked a little bit to putting some money ahead for future projects. And unfortunately, that never happened because of the flood. There was a lot of financial pressures on the city. The city rates on the sewer fund didn't get increased, and the results, as you saw in your audit report, is you had a big shortfall in your sewer fund. There are a number of things that are going to happen in the next couple of years that are going to exacerbate that, going to make it worse. And in short, one of them is the shortfall from last year was about 16% of your revenues. You have bond payment coming due on the sewer and water project that is presently being undertaken that will add about $33,000 to your sewer enterprise fund. And the wastewater treatment plant is in need of an upgrade, which we anticipate will happen either 2011 or 2012, and that will add about another $54,000 to your sewer enterprise fund. So when you add all those numbers together, your deficit would grow from what was $54,000 last year to about $161,000 within a 3-year period. So obviously something has to be done to, first of all, recognize the problem and come up with a solution for it. I give you in my memo kind of an estimation of what the picture was on the wastewater plant, and we're looking at a project there that's necessary to meet your permit requirements and just to keep the plant running. It was in, shall we say, poor shape before the flood. We got a bunch of mechanical systems replaced, but overall it didn't really improve the operation of the plant an awful lot. We did a feasibility study for you and submitted it to the state that basically says right now we're looking at the $1.2 million figure that needs to be spent in the next 2 years. In 2021 there'll be about another $1 million that's required to keep up with standards that are likely to occur by that time. So the picture on your enterprise fund is not positive. It's only going to get worse unless we do something to recognize that and bring it back into what would be a balanced situation. If I could control my pointer here. Of course, when we're dealing with the wastewater plant, we're also dealing with Rushford Village, and they presently have about 9% of our treatment plant usage. They have 103 or 104 units that contribute to the city. They've requested that we increase their capacity up to 120, which is a minor increase for us, but for them it's about a 15% increase. They would be asked to participate in the payments on the plant upgrade, that $1.2 million. So we have to also work with them to get them to understand what that means and to start working on an agreement with them. So there's a number of things that we have to do. We have to balance the enterprise fund, we have to work with the village, and we have to finish our process at the PFA and PCA to get this plant underway. I'll take the easy part of our action required first, in that the plant is eligible for a grant and a loan. The grant is TMDL, which is a mass limit grant, and typically that's a 50-50 split of eligible items. We're limited on, or we will be limited on the amount of total suspended solids that is discharged to the river, and TSS processes in the plant are usually about 30% of the cost of a plant. So if it's a 50-50 split on that, we can expect to get somewhere around 15% of the project as a grant. I'm asking you to give me permission to apply for that, to prepare that grant application for you. I anticipate I'll be able to come back by your July 12th meeting. If I miss that one, I can still get by your second one, and with the paperwork to apply for that grant. I'm suggesting that that be done for a fee not to exceed $1,000, which basically covers engineering and preparative time for that. The second item that I had there, the first one, is a lot trickier. If I could direct your attention to this particular chart here, and you do have, can you get that focus a little bit better? Kathy did make copies for you, and this is copy number 2. Not much better. Okay, we'll peel off the paperwork then that was handed out.
Just moving the lights up with it.
What we need is more LGA so we can buy a bigger screen, right? If I could, Council, walk you through this chart here. There is the area on the left-hand side, which is shown in various shades of brown, that basically talks to the issue of costs of a wastewater treatment plant operation. The first column is called O&M, and that's the operating part of the plant. That's the salaries, the electricity, the supplies, the chemicals. And last year we spent about $240,000 on just operation and maintenance. The second column, the R column, is monies that we put aside every year for replacement of major item failures at the plant, things that just wear out, like major pumps, ultraviolet irradiation fixtures, that kind of stuff. And we've consistently put away $10,000 a year for that. Right now we have, I believe, $143,000 in that account, Kathy, if your memory is right on that. So those monies could be used to help defray some of the costs in this process. I'm showing about $6,000 as increased O&M, and those may or may not happen depending upon the timing of what we do at the plant, but basically it would be additional sludge disposal costs that would be associated with more sludge being generated. Then we get into the darker brown areas, and these are the significant costs. There's about $170,000 that are projected to occur in the next 3 years, basically to pay for debt that has or will be incurred. If you remember, we talked about the operating costs come to about $250,000, but we also have a component in our sewer enterprise fund here of about $160,000 that is just debt. It's paying off things that we've, for instance, the first column has to do with the project to upgrade the plant back in 1996, and it resulted in a cost for 20 years of $76,000 a year. So every year we have to generate from our sewer fund $76,000 a year just to pay that debt. The next column, the one that shows $33,000 a year, is monies that were committed to pay for the project that you did last year and this year. And it's the sewer portion of that, and that portion is $33,000 a year. That will kick in depending upon PFA's schedule either this fall or next spring. But once again, that's a cost that you don't have in your budget presently, and will make your enterprise fund further in the red if you don't do something to increase the income to pay for that.